Hola amigos, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos nuevamente a una serie de Encuentro Decisivos. Estamos felices de llegar a sus hogares y transmitirles toda una serie de bendición para ustedes, y para nosotros ha sido una emoción también poder escuchar estos temas que han sido de maravilla para nuestras vidas. Hoy tenemos unos saludos especiales. ¿Y dónde van esos saludos, Yuri?
Esos saludos van a nuestros amigos en Wenatchee, Quincy, Othello, y en Spokane. And please let us know where you are watching from. We're so happy you could join us here today. This week is going to be an awesome week. We invite you to share this video with your friends. And up next, we will have our special worship song.
Así es, pero antes queremos mencionar quién va a ser la oradora de esta noche, y estará a cargo de Rubi Perez, quien estará hablando acerca de la liberación. Así que esperamos que compartas este mensaje, lo envíes en un link por tus amigos, lo envíes en un mensaje, nos des likes y mandes tus comentarios, y sobre todo, si tienes un grupo de jóvenes que están en tu casa escuchando estos mensajes, puedes enviarnos una foto, puedes decirnos quiénes son, y así podemos enviar al final de la semana un premio para cada uno de ellos. Así es que mantente conectado con nosotros.
Solamente una palabra, solamente una oración. Cuando llegue a tu presencia, oh Señor, no me importa en qué lugar de la mesa me has de sentar, o el color de mi corona cuando me la des al entrar. Solamente una palabra, si es que aún me queda voz, y si logro articularla en tu presencia. No te quiero hacer preguntas, solo una petición. Y si puede ser a solas, mucho mejor. Solo déjame mirarte cara a cara y perderme como un niño en tu mirada, y que pase mucho tiempo y que nadie diga nada, porque estoy viendo al Maestro cara a cara. Que se ahoguen mis recuerdos en tu mirada. Quiero amarte en el silencio y sin palabras, y que pase mucho tiempo y que nadie diga nada. Solo déjame mirarte cara a cara. Solamente una palabra, solamente una oración. Cuando llegue a tu presencia, oh mi Señor, no me importa en qué lugar de la mesa me has de sentar, o el color de mi corona cuando me la des al entrar. Solo déjame mirarte cara a cara, aunque caiga derretido en tu mirada, derrotado y desde el suelo, tembloroso y sin aliento, aún te seguiré mirando, mi maestro. Cuando caiga entre tus plantas de rodillas, déjame llorar pegado a tus heridas y que pase mucho tiempo y que nadie me lo impida. Que he esperado este momento toda mi vida. Que he esperado este momento toda mi vida.
Luke chapter 13, verses 10 through 17. On the Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, the synagogue leaders said to the people, "There are 6 days for work, so come and be healed on those days, not on the Sabbath." The Lord answered him, "You hypocrites! Doesn't each of you on the Sabbath untie your ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her?" When he said this, all his opponents were humiliated, but the people were delighted with all the wonderful things he was doing.
I have a question for all of you. How many of you like to go to the clearance aisle at the store? I like to go there all the time. Every time I go to the store, I go right to the clearance aisle. There aren't usually a whole lot of new things from week to week, but every now and then you do find something, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad I went. For instance, I was just there last week, and I saw that there were a few notebooks on clearance. And I looked at them, and they looked really good. Not really sure why they were on clearance, and then I took a closer look, and I saw that this front page, this basically just the page that describes all the fancy features of the notebook, was folded. And you can even see this big clearance sticker here. This used to be $3.47 on clearance for $2, all because of this folded part here, which is so crazy because as soon as you buy this notebook, you're going to tear this off and you're never going to think about it twice. But because it's not perfect anymore, nobody wants to pay full price for it. So it's on clearance. Then I went to the food aisle to see what was on clearance there, and I found this can of sliced black olives. Super fancy, always cost more money because they did the work for you. So on reduced from $1.34 to $1.04. Okay, and I looked at it and I said, well, let's see. When I turned it around, that's where I found has this big dent on the side. Again, crazy, because how many of you eat the can Nobody eats the can. We open it up and throw it away. There's nothing wrong with the olives that are in here. But because the can has a dent in it, no, people see it and nobody thinks it has the same value. Nobody wants to pay the same price, the same $1.34 for it. Pay $1.04 for it. But it has a defect, so its value goes down. And that's very similar to how people would have thought of and treated the woman in this story. It says that this woman was crippled. She was bent forward. She had a disability so that she couldn't straighten up. And it's very likely that she was shunned from her community, sent off. People didn't want to be around her. And if you kind of just think and want to imagine for a little bit what a day would have been like in her life. So, I don't know what Sabbath mornings are like for you, but I remember it can be kind of hectic. Everybody waking up at the same time, right? Everybody has to take a shower. Everybody's got to get their clothes on. Nobody can find their shoes. And everybody rushing to the door to get in the car. Everybody's eating their breakfast on the way. And a little hectic. Everybody trying to get everything done last minute and super fast. But for this woman, nothing would have happened fast. She had this disability. She was crippled. So even just imagine, they didn't have faucets, didn't have sinks. Just imagine for this woman getting water. She would have had to have gone to get water, either with her bucket or her huge jar, whatever it was, by herself earlier in the week to use for whatever she was, for her washing things, for her breakfast, even just combing her hair. So just imagine you're doubled over, okay? Trying to comb, trying to get ready, trying to grab her shawl to put over, and she can't bend, right? Her back won't let her straighten up. Going to the bathroom, okay? They didn't have toilets back then, probably just a hole in the ground. Even those things that we take for granted for her would have taken so much longer. And so, of course, I wanted to figure out what it was that could have been causing this condition for her. And after doing some research, it sounds like for the most part, a lot of people agree it was probably a condition that's called ankylosing spondylitis. Could have been a couple of other conditions, but this is one that may have been it. And it's a condition where there's inflammation in the bones of the spine. I have my friend here who's going to model for us. His name is Roberto. And his spine is already fused, just by nature of him being fake. But if you take a look, all of these bones that make up the spine are part of what would have been inflamed in this condition. So it happens kind of at the front part, and what happens is the bones start over time to collapse on each other. And as they're collapsing over time, they fuse, which, if you can see my hand, the whole back starts to curve forward this way. And had it been that condition, or even a couple of other conditions, it causes a ton of pain. A ton of pain. And for most people, if you have a rough day, you're just like, I'm just going to go sleep and just forget that this day ever happened and start brand new tomorrow. But sleep for people with this condition is excruciating, because any kind of lack of moving, you stop moving and that stiffness gets worse. So for them, if they go to sleep, they wake up and it can be hours before their body is able to move again, and they don't have that stiffness. And this is something that she was dealing with for 18 years, just progressively, every day a little worse, a little bit more pain. This woman had an illness, a physical illness, something everybody could see. But something that they probably didn't see was what she was feeling emotionally. Having been rejected, isolated, sent off away from the people, she probably didn't have many friends, if any friends. She was probably always alone. She probably just had so many questions and just felt so alone and depressed that she probably dealt a lot with hopelessness. despair, anxiety, all of these things that she struggled with on a daily basis. And not only emotionally, but spiritually. She probably also had to deal with a lot of things. Back in that time, there was a common thought that if you were crippled or ill or something was happening to you, it was either you being punished for something you did or you being punished because of something your parents did. And so people wouldn't have wanted to be near her. They wouldn't have wanted to touch her because you can't touch someone and risk, what if she's contagious? What if I get it? Can't get anywhere near her. So they did their own social distancing, keeping her far away. So if they were thinking that, you just imagine she was probably thinking the same thing. What am I being punished for? I could just imagine her in her prayers at night asking God, why? Why me? What did I do? Tell me what I did and I'll fix it. I'll make it right. Whatever I can do to change it. And besides the despair and the loneliness and just the hopelessness from being isolated from everyone else, I can imagine that she probably felt very much alone and all of the silence from not having the answers that she waited for from God. But then something happened on that Sabbath morning in the synagogue. It says that she was in the synagogue. She was there with everyone else. Jesus was there. And it says that he saw her. Now, for Jesus to have seen her, because he's the guest of honor, right? So he would have been probably in the center, all of the men around, ready to listen to his message. And the women would have been off on a different side, maybe even covered by a curtain or something to separate them. So if he saw her, that's because he was looking for her. He would have seen her. He would have seen her physical appearance. He would have seen her just as everyone else saw her, doubled over. And then it says that he called her forward. He saw her and he called her forward. So we know Jesus saw her physical illness. He saw that she was crippled, disabled, her back bent, twisted, out of shape. And he calls her forward. And I was thinking about this and I was like, isn't that a little messed up? Like, why would Jesus call this woman out in front of everybody? I'm an introvert, so I hate when people call on me. It's just the worst thing ever. It's so embarrassing. And I was like, Jesus was going to heal her. Why didn't he just walk over to the corner where she was sitting and just heal her, do the thing? She wouldn't have had to walk in front of everybody. Because just imagine, her walking on her way to the synagogue, like all of the murmurs and whispers and all these people talking about her, just, the kids pointing, Mom, why does she look like that? Mom, what happened to her? Mom, why is she like that? And she would have dealt with all of that. And now Jesus calls her forward to walk in front of everybody in her condition, in her state. And, we'll look a little bit later at what Jesus has in mind. But this woman, he knows her inside and out, and he knows she has courage. She's sitting in the synagogue with all of these people, despite all the things that she has going on inside of her. So he called her. He saw her physical illness. He saw her emotional illness, but he was also there. When she had those questions, when she was crying at night, when she felt so alone and felt that no one was answering her, he was there. He heard all of that. So it says that he calls her forward, and then it says, he tells her in verse 12, he says, Woman, you are set free. Okay, woman, you are set free. And then it says, then he puts his hands on her and he heals her. But hold on a second. It says, he told her, Woman, you are set free. So what did he set her free from if he was still going to put his hands on her to heal her? Did his words just not work this time? Because Jesus has spoken people to life. Like, you remember the story of Lazarus. He just called and Lazarus came forward, right? He's healed other people with just his words. So did it just didn't work the first time? He's like, okay, let's do this. No. See, Jesus saw this woman not just her physical condition, her body, but he saw her inside. He saw her soul. Like we talked about, he saw her emotional bondage. He saw the depression. He saw the loneliness. He saw the isolation. He saw all the tears that she cried, all the questions that she had asked. He saw all of that bondage inside of her, the bondage that no one else saw. Nobody else had seen that. Nobody probably even cared. All they could see what was going on the outside. And that's how they judged her, as someone who was defective, deformed, not worth as much anymore. Jesus didn't see that. He saw her soul, and he healed something that was keeping her held captive inside, something that was holding on to her, holding her prisoner, the one thing that nobody else could even see. But because Jesus, when he heals people, he doesn't just do a half job. He heals her from her sorrows and her bondage, emotional bondage, her spiritual bondage inside, and then he puts his hands on her back. He put his hands on her back, and if you can just imagine, okay, because she's bent forward, right? Says Bible verses say she couldn't straighten up. So you just imagine the creator of the world, right, forming the very first human being, putting his hands on her back. And then the verse says that immediately she straightened up. And I want you to, because the words don't do enough. We have to imagine for a little bit, okay? Because I want you to imagine that you have like a 50-pound backpack on your back, okay? If you've ever gone backpacking, hiking, 10 hours, okay? Or if you've ever worked in the pears or the apples, right? Super heavy, and you have that huge bucket, pail thing on your side, right? So you're all day emptying that, filling it, and your back is just so sore. You're in so much pain. You're so stiff after 10 hours of working. So imagine that, after your 10-hour hike with your huge backpack, or after having worked 8 or 10 hours with this huge thing, you get home and you're like, do you just rip it off? And you're like, oh yeah, I feel great. I mean, you probably feel great as soon as you throw the backpack off, but I can almost guarantee that you're stiff, right? Because you've been carrying this heavy load for hours. You might have a backpack, at the end you're walking like this. So it takes some time and some effort. You pull it off, and you just have to work those muscles out a little bit until you can finally stand up straight, okay? Because that's what happens when our muscles get stiff. Can you imagine this woman for 18 years? Her muscles were stuck in one position. Her body, her bones stuck in one position. Jesus puts his hands on her, and it says immediately she stands up. You just imagine her feeling like brand new blood flowing through her body, brand new muscles, just everything working perfectly again. She's having the body of a 30-year-old athlete, whoever your favorite athlete is. And she stands up and she's brand new. This brand new woman who's set free, not just from her bondage inside, the bondage nobody saw but Jesus saw, but the bondage, her own body that had kept her trapped for 18 years. And I just imagine, you would think that everybody would be super excited, right? They'd seen her for almost 2 decades struggling and suffering. But that isn't the case. People talked about her before she came into the synagogue. All of the chisme that was going around about her. And people are still talking about her, because if you look at the next verses, and it says, verse 14, it says indignant, which basically means angry, offended, or annoyed, because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath. The leader of the synagogue tells the people, hey, guys, there are 6 days for you to come and get healed. Why are you coming on the Sabbath? And it's really interesting that he tells the people this, because he's probably the one that invited Jesus in the first place. So why don't you just tell Jesus? Like, you invite someone to your house, they do something super embarrassing. You don't yell at the people that are at your house. You yell at the person that's doing the embarrassing thing. So why doesn't he tell Jesus? And it's probably because Jesus obviously has power. Jesus has authority. He just heals someone right in front of his eyes. So he's not going to go to the person in power and tell him anything. He's going to go to the people, the little people, right? The ones that don't have any power, the ones that don't have any say. And he yells at them. He's like, you guys wanted healed? You guys want to have brand new lives? You guys want to have better lives? You want to be freed? Don't come on the Sabbath. Come any other day. And I love Jesus' response. Jesus is one of those people who he really is never afraid to tell it like it is. So the leader of the synagogue starts yelling at the people for breaking the Sabbath. Now, here's Jesus' response. He's like, I'm going to do some yelling of my own, right? So Jesus' response, he says, you hypocrites. You hypocrites, you posers, you fakes. And notice that he says hypocrites, okay, with an S. He's not just talking to the leader of the synagogue now. This message is for anyone and everyone, okay, if the shoe fits. Jesus is telling them, I know before you guys came to church this morning, you went, you untied your ox, you untied your donkey, you went, you took him to get some water before, and you're going to tell me that this woman who has been bound for 18 years, that I couldn't untie her, that I couldn't free her? You're going to tell me that I couldn't do that on the Sabbath? Now I have a question for you, because if these people had not untied their ox, untied their donkey, to go get them some water, would they have died? If they had waited just the Sabbath day without some water, they probably wouldn't have died. They probably would have been fine. Now what about this woman? Jesus hadn't healed her on the Sabbath day. She probably would have just kept living the same as she had been. This has been going on for 18 years. But actually, remember, Jesus saw more than just her outside. So physically, she probably would have been just fine. But inside, she was probably dying a little more each day. A little more each day. And Jesus saw her. He saw her. And he's like, no, I'm not going to let this keep going on. This has been going on for way too long. I'm here. This is the Sabbath. This is the perfect day for her to be healed. The Sabbath is all about finding healing, all about finding new life and rest. This is the perfect day for me to free her. And I want you to notice the phrase that he uses to describe this woman, because he says, he calls her the daughter of Abraham. This is the only time this is used in the entire Bible. He calls her the daughter of Abraham, and we all know Abraham, these are like their heroes, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, these are the all-stars. Everybody wanted to be like them, okay? They always refer to them. And Jesus uses that phrase to describe this woman, and he's telling the people, he's like, one, she's a daughter of Abraham, okay? She's a Jew. She's a Jew just like each and every one of you. So shame on you. Shame on you for treating her the way I know you would have treated her. For all of the loneliness that she felt because people didn't want to be around her, the isolation, sending her off, rejecting her, making her feel like a clearance item, making her feel like somebody that nobody wanted. Shame on you, because she is one of you. But not only is she one of you, and I think this is really why Jesus called her up in front of everybody, because he says, this is a daughter of Abraham, okay? And where did, Abraham, the whole lineage, right? Abraham came from Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were created by God. God created the world, right? King. This is a lineage of royalty. She is royalty. She is standing here. So Jesus didn't call her up to embarrass her. He called her up because he wanted to praise her. He wanted everybody to see he was proud of this woman who, even in her bondage, even in all of the shame and guilt, even in all of her illness, was there in the synagogue. She was faithful. He saw all of that. One place that I was reading said that she walked in the steps of Abraham. He called her up because he wanted to say, I see the pain and the hurt that you all caused this woman. You hurt my child, but I want you to show you who she is to me. This is not a clearance item person. This is somebody who is royalty, and she's worth so much to me that I came here on this Sabbath with the purpose of healing her, setting her free from her bondage, not just from her body, the body that kept her trapped, but from her bondage of her despair and depression and all the guilt and shame that she was feeling. Jesus did that for this woman in front of everybody so they could all see the kind of God that he is. He's always does that in the Bible, always going for the people, the outcasts, the ones who are shunned, who nobody wants. And he did that for her on that Sabbath morning. And I want to tell you that the awesome news is that just like Jesus set this woman free, he wants to set you free too. Whatever it is, only you know. Maybe it's something super obvious, like this woman who every time she walked, people could see her back was bent and she's doubled over. It was deformed, twisted. Maybe it's something public that people can see, but you just can't let go. Maybe it's something private, something done in secret, something that just you haven't been able to give up, and it's keeping you prisoner. Maybe it started as something, you look in the mirror and you just want that perfect shot, because it's all about your followers, right? It's all about the number of followers you have on Instagram. It's the number of streaks you got on Snapchat. And now all of your worth, all of your value is in those numbers on the screen. Maybe after dealing with all of the bullying and the nicknames and all of the teasing at school, you look at yourself and there's nothing you like. Nothing. If you could just change this, if you could change that. And all of the pain that you feel from the outside, all of these people, all of their words that just tear you up inside, and you just feel numb. And you just want to feel something again. And you're like, if I just cut myself once, and I just feel something, just once, that's all I need. And now you're in a cycle where all of that pain on the inside now is coming out on the outside over and over, and you don't know how to set yourself free. And maybe it's a relationship. He tells you he's going to get you the house, he's going to get you the car, he's going to give you the credit cards, you buy all the shoes you want, all the purses you want. Just keep him happy for right now. That's all he asks. And every time you leave, you're filled with so much shame and guilt. But you don't know how to let go. You don't know how to be free from that. And maybe it's the questions, if you would have been a better son, if you would have helped more, maybe your dad wouldn't have left. Why would your friend have betrayed you? You promised, she promised, he promised you, and now you feel so hurt and you just got this anger that is consuming you. Whatever it is, we all have something that keeps us prisoner until we come to Jesus. And I want you to pay attention. It says that Jesus saw her. She didn't go up to Jesus. He saw her. And I want you to know that Jesus sees you. He called her to him. Jesus is calling you. He sees you in those darkest moments when you think you're all alone. And when you feel like there's nobody around you. You just feel trapped. You feel like a prisoner. And you can't be set free. Jesus is there. Jesus is there. And after calling this woman up, he healed her, he straightened her up, he gave her a brand new life. You imagine, not only did she have a brand new life physically, emotionally, spiritually, but just imagine what she was able to see. Jesus allowed her to live her full potential. I want you to know, until you come to Jesus, she was hunched over. He straightened her up. She was never going to be able to see life and live life like he wanted until he came into her life. And he wants to do that for you. You won't be able to live your full potential until you come to Jesus. And the awesome thing is that he's calling you. He's calling you to come forward. You don't have to be embarrassed. You might be like, no, I don't do the church thing. Religion, that's not for me. Start talking about Jesus. What are people going to think, right? But remember, even for this woman, people talked about her, no doubt it, before she went to church, on her way to church, when she was still in her body, trapped by this illness. And people still wanted to talk and make a laughing stock and shame her, even after she was healed. People will say what they're going to say. This is about you and Jesus. And Jesus is calling you. Will you come to him? Do you want to be set free from whatever it is that's holding you in physically, emotionally, spiritually? Do you want to let God free you from that bondage? He wants to do that for you. And he's calling you today. And so my hope is that you will listen to him. You will come forward and accept the healing that he has for you. Accept the healing that he has for you to set you free so that you can live the life that he always planned for. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much because you are a God that wants to free us from our bondage. Satan would try and keep us trapped, God, but you are there. You are there now. You are there with each person listening, and I pray that you give us all the strength to be able to come forward, to come to you, so that we can be set free from whatever bondage is keeping us, Lord. We don't want to live in that another day, and I pray that you just give each person listening the strength to come to you, to accept you, and that you would heal us, God, and set us free just as you did for this woman. We pray all of this in the healing name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Wow, what a beautiful message we had today. It really shows us that we are worth more than we think.
Así es, la verdad es que no importa lo que haya pasado antes en tu vida, no importa si has cometido errores que te hacen sentir culpable, lo importante saber es que eres un hijo, una hija de Dios, y ese es el mejor valor que podemos guardar en nuestro corazón y en nuestra mente. El día de mañana quiero anunciarles que estará a cargo Alex Amaro del tema y nos hablará acerca de la tormenta. Así es que no te lo pierdas, invita a tus amigos, envíale este link y disfrútalo con nosotros mañana. Te esperamos.
En todo momento, en todo lugar, a cada paso. Jesús desea tener un encuentro decisivo contigo. Participa de la Semana Joven Encuentro Decisivo. Desde el domingo 27 de septiembre al viernes 2 de octubre a las 8:30 p.m. y los sábados 26 de septiembre y 3 de octubre a las 11 a.m. Síguelo por nuestras cuentas @hispanosucc y @nextgensda. Recibe cada día un mensaje decisivo para tu vida y prepárate para brillar por Jesús. Encuentro Decisivo, desde el sábado 26 de septiembre al 3 de octubre. Te esperamos.